Okay. Widows 2018 Thoughts film, specifying that it is not the miniseries and it's not one of the other movies called Widows. And I think at least one of those is also an adaptation of the miniseries. And yeah, I'm gonna dive right in. This movie is amazing, but I'm gonna start with the notes taken while watching. Let's get a little structure. I really appreciate that the opening. You know, I just got done watching the midnight screenings. Brad Jones talking about the movie with a friend of his, and you know they bring this up as well. The opening, I really love that. Literally, the very first thing we see is just you know. Before I get too far into this, I had a little trouble keeping up with everyone's name. That's something pretty common for me. So for some of these, I'm gonna refer to them by the actresses or actors' names, and some I'm gonna go with the character. And yeah, but you know, I got this. Veronica and Harry. Veronica and Harry lying in bed, and you know, first just the smile that we also see in the trailers, and then they start like open mouth kissing, like full on, and then cut, and we see, you know, the heist has already gone wrong. It's not like, you know, okay, yeah, but while he's doing this with her, he's also doing this. No, you know, this is what they did, and this is how that ends. This is why they're no longer doing that, is because this heist went terribly wrong. And you know, we see Linda, I want to say her name is Linda, Michelle Rodriguez's character in the store, and you can tell from the look on her face, she knows that there's something else going on here. And you've got John Bernthal with Alice, and you know, I got the sense from the trailer that the bit we see, he's not upset that she's been hit, and you just from those few seconds in the trailer, you get the sense he's probably the one that hit her. And he doesn't just, you know, he's almost checking out his work. How much of a bruise has it left? And he's mocking her and like kind of poking at her bruise, and the you know, he's telling her, you know, you really should cover that with makeup. Which, I mean, I'm no expert, but as far as I can tell, she already tried that. She put effort into hiding the bruise with makeup, and you know, to him it's not good enough. And she actually, you know, I forget the exact line, but she does actually say, you know, he's like, I don't like that bruise or something, and she's like, yeah, I don't like it either. You know, there's this little bit of kind of a hint of, you know, you're the one who hit me. You don't get to hit me and then be like, ugh, why do you look so swollen? And there's this very real sense that he might hit her for that, hit her again. And just, you know, you're relieved when he doesn't. And you know, there are a lot of short scenes in this, and that really does start from the very beginning. I think I'm briefly going to talk about I've seen various I think both Feminist Frequency and Film Brain, in their respective reviews of the movie, said that they almost wish it was a miniseries, and they could really tell that it was adapted from a miniseries because there was so much material. I can see how this might be, if this was longer, you know, if it was much longer, you would probably say, well, maybe split it into a miniseries instead of, you know, there's a lot of material, and it's very, very dense, and there are limits to how much you can ask your audience to absorb in the theater. You know, where with a miniseries, there's going to be commercial breaks, there's going to, you know, you don't have to, I guess with Netflix you can watch it all at once. I don't know, I don't use Netflix, but you know, with a miniseries you watch it over multiple sittings. It's not a TV series. I don't think this would make for, if you wanted to make a TV series out of this, you would have to add a lot more characters. But as it is, if this was maybe at least an hour longer, maybe twice as long as it is, something that you would get that I think I can see, personally, I'm not sure that I think that this should be anything other than it is. I guess I can see why others do. And I do think I definitely do think that it could sustain a longer running time. But I don't necessarily think that it needs it. But as it is, there are a number of scenes that don't really have a lot of room to breathe. And there are some characters in this where you really do get very little. I wasn't surprised that we didn't get very much of the husbands. You know, Harry's the only one we get very much with, and that's because he survived. So there's not, but yeah, I guess I didn't mention, but yeah, again, there is the spoiler tag right up there, full of spoilers, this video. I mean, someone like Amanda, for example, I'm sorry, but by the time, when she called and Veronica was like, oh, Amanda, it took me, like, at first I was like, who's Amanda? But, you know, oh, right, one of the widows didn't show up. And I was also, when the movie was starting and you see, you know, oh, okay, Michelle Rodriguez, Viola Davis, you know, Elizabeth Debicki, okay, you know, I've seen all of these people, I've seen all of these actors in the trailers. So I'm like, okay, right, that's, you know, that person is with that, you know, she is going to be the widow of this guy. And then it shows this one guy, and he's with this woman, and I'm like, I have no idea who that is. None of the trailers had even a glimpse of this woman. And then when, you know, she calls, and then there's this, you know, there's Veronica talks, you know, they have a conversation, and there's this thing of, oh, you know, she has this 5-month-old baby. And once the baby was in, oh, okay, gotcha. She is one of the widows, but she's not going to be involved because she has a baby. And she was introduced at the very start because that's where all of the widows were introduced. And yeah, you know, once I saw her again, yeah, one of the first things she says is, I'm sorry I didn't come see you at the spa. And then I was like, oh, right. In that scene, she did mention, you know, that she had expected there would be 3 widows to greet her, and there were only 2. But yeah, for a while there, she's not mentioned at all. And she doesn't, I mean, ultimately, I guess basically the reason she's there at all, the character might as well. Excuse me. I mean, excuse me. You needed 4 people in the heist at the beginning, so that, excuse me, setting up that, okay, there needs to be 4 people on these heists, but that guy didn't need to be married. There didn't need to be a 4th widow. And basically the reason she's there is for the twist that Harry, I have to admit, I didn't even realize, but Wikipedia said, the 5-month-old baby, that's Harry's baby. And that does make sense, because when she said, you're going to go off with your new white family, I did not realize that, I mean, obviously he's with Amanda because he's, when we first see that he's alive, he's at her place. But I didn't realize that also meant the baby, because you do see the baby before the... Yeah, you assumed that the baby was the guy who died, rather than Harry's. But it does make sense. And yeah, I mean, you could essentially remove her character if not for the fact that you needed this kind of, and that is, I do think the movie would lose a lot if not for that twist. But the fact that basically Harry, he was a white man who wanted a black woman, and when the stark reality of being black in America reasserted itself, he couldn't take it anymore. She doesn't have a choice. She can't leave being black in America. But he does. He doesn't have to raise more black children in America and have them be killed by trigger-happy cops. So he can't take it. So he leaves and he goes off with a white family that he can consider safe. He doesn't feel that he has to take care of Veronica. And yeah, this movie has so much to say about the way power, basically it's the white people who have power, and occasionally they will, out of their good graces, they will give a little bit of that power to black people. But even there, it isn't, and in the case of Alice and David, the white man is willing to grant some power to a white woman, as long as he doesn't have to marry her. I mean, that's just too much of a hassle, and have to take care of her. He'll pay for expensive stuff for her, but he's not gonna take care of her. He tried that once, and that was impossible. He can't do that again. But he does want company. Like she even points it out. You want the good parts of being of a romantic relationship. To get back to, there are definitely scenes that did not have a lot of air to, that didn't have a lot of breathing room. And that would obviously, a longer running time would have allowed for that. And some of the characters you don't get much of a sense of, because there's only so much time and there are so many characters. I do think that the characters, they get just enough. We do get just enough of a sense of Siobhan, and I'm sorry, I don't remember her name, but she owns the hair salon, or, as she says, this lets me feel like I actually own it. And Amanda, I feel like we got just enough to, even though they don't have a lot of screen time, and Amanda doesn't even have very many lines, or, actually, sorry, yeah, she does have more than the owner of the hair salon. But I feel like it's just enough, and I feel like the movie, it's one of those movies where you don't want to have done a lot of other things that day. You know, make it a day where you maybe slept in and you got, you know, you didn't do anything too stressful that day, and then you sit and watch it, because it's gonna take all of, you have to pay constant attention, and you have to keep up with all of these developments. And if you manage, that's of course also, not everybody has that luxury, I realize that, but if you can do that, if you can give the movie that, your undivided attention for these 2 hours and, I don't know, maybe, is it 5 minutes without end credits? I'm not 100% sure. Then it, to me at least, really absolutely worked. I think I'm gonna try to make this a thing of saying what I think I would rate this on a scale of 1 to 10, and currently I'm leaning towards 9. And yeah, it's real close to a 10. There are a couple of things that I feel maybe, but it's really close to a 10. And it's definitely, I doubt I'm gonna change my mind from a 9, but I guess before the end of the video, I'll, if I change my mind over going over it, I'll say in that. Anyway, this has been a digression from my notes, not from the film, thankfully, but I think that's pretty much gonna be it for this digression. Yeah, just I do think that it does genuinely, I mean, there is a real, it's very tense and intense, and yet I understand the people who thought that the planning and maybe also the heist itself would be more of the movie, you know, have more screen time. There's a lot of screen time devoted to things that are not those two things. You know, I think, did Film Brain outright point out that, you know, it's like 10 minutes from the start of the heist to the end of the, yeah, you know, it's not an action-packed film, and it's not a film that is like constantly showing people planning. And it also really, there is only the one heist scene, and then at the very start, for just a few minutes, we get a heist gone wrong, but we have no idea what actually, we're told that it was Jamal's money, and, you know, yeah, but really it is not. A lot of people have compared this to Heat, and I think, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and just spoil Heat in this video, because I really think it's worth going into great detail. I watched Heat. I'm probably gonna, I think I put this in my notes elsewhere, but anyway, I watched Heat, let me think, was it Wednesday? I guess, I don't think it was Monday. I think it was Wednesday. So, and it's, yeah, I record this Saturday. So, and I've watched it dozens of times over the years. And if I had to say, is this movie better than Heat? there are ways in which it is, yes, and ways. I don't think it's trying to top Heat in the ways that it. Yeah, there are a number of things about Heat that. Yeah, it's not trying to outdo Heat in every element, but it is trying to say more than Heat is about power dynamics, and the race relationships, which Heat is not particularly concerned with, and it doesn't need to be. Not every movie needs to be about race. Not every, yeah, and I think and it's also, if I recall, Heat's from 1994. I think if this movie had essentially been Heat without too much, I think I would have felt that it needed to go deeper into the race issue. But now is a great time to go into the race issue, and race when it comes to power. And that is something that this movie, I would not have wanted the many scenes that talk about race and power in America, in Chicago. I would not have wanted those scenes to be replaced by heist stuff. Because that is a thing. If Heat has a lot more heist scenes, it has a lot more. I can understand. It wasn't something that disappointed me, but after watching the movie, it's in the trailers. Get us some guns, 3 Glocks, and you see in the trailers, you see them point a gun at the security guard. You see the intense shot of Viola with the mask pointing the gun and breathing hard in her intense eyes. There are not very many shots fired on screen in this movie. There's the brief barrage of gunfire that blows. Well, we later find out that wasn't what blew up the car, but the barrage of gunfire at the van of the robbers at the very start, and then near the end. I mean, the Tom, I want to say is his name, the Elder Mulligan, yeah, the Elderman Mulligan, the first Elderman Mulligan. I'm gonna go with Tom. Tom shoots Alice, and I want to say Veronica is the one that shoots him. I believe so, yes. And then Veronica shoots Harry. Yeah, one of them shoots. I really hope I don't mispronounce this. Jamel. I'm sorry. I think I might just go with. I think I'm just gonna call him Daniel, as in Daniel Kaluuya's character, because I really don't want to get the name wrong. Not that it's unproblematic to. I think his name. Yeah, because Jack mocks it and says, he as if it was French, as if he was saying. Jamet. I'm sorry. I think I'm gonna go with Daniel. And one of them shoots Daniel. Veronica shoots Harry. And that's essentially it. you know, and the barrage of gunfire there at the start goes by incredibly fast. You know, if you're deciding between this movie and Heat, and something that's very important to you to get out of the movie, excuse me, just to make absolutely certain, this thing is always updating itself, and occasionally it's gonna be like, oh hey, you don't mind if I just reboot to update, do you? And I do. So I check. Okay. If you're deciding between this movie and Heat, and something that's really important to you in, you know, and it makes sense. You want to watch a heist movie, you want to see some gunfire. You know, you want to see people shooting at each other. Heat has a lot more of people shooting at each other. And, I mean, it's also, I mean, Michael Mann is a master at the kind of gritty crime movie, you know, and I don't think that Steve McQueen is trying to, you know, knock him off the throne there. This movie is very different from that, and yeah, you really don't get the sense that this is a movie. If they had really wanted to, if they had been determined to, they could have fit in several more heists. Which again, you know, Heat, let's just briefly go through. Again, spoiling that entire movie. You know, you have a heist at the very start with the truck, the money transport, I want to say it is. Then you've got the abandoned heist where they're, you know, cutting through steel. And not really a heist, but let's bring up, you have the confrontation where, you know, Neil is there to like, okay, we're gonna exchange some money because, you know, where Van Sant is like, no, I'm gonna kill these guys. And the assassin tries to sneak up behind Neil, and the whole, you know, yeah, I'm not gonna go over everything in the scene, and just, now you know what I'm talking about. So that's 3 scenes involving heists. Let's go with that, involving heists. And then you've got the bank robbery at the end. That's 4 scenes involving heists, and at least 2 like completed heists. And it's not that these scenes take up extreme amounts of running time, but they are there. There's a, you know, if you sit down and watch Heat, there, every so often there will be a heist, or at least an attempted heist, and people will be shot. There will be like clever heists, you know, maneuvering, and yeah, it's yeah, I mean, that movie, if you don't know going into it how good it's gonna be, then that running time. Is it 2 hours and 43 minutes, I want to say? I really should have written that down. But yeah, you know, just watched it a couple of days ago. You know, that's kind of, it's a long time to be just sitting completely still again. No commercial breaks, just sitting still, doing one thing, just watching. But the movie keeps your attention. There are one of the things that keeps your attention is all these heists, but then there's also all of this character drama. And again, I would also say of Heat, you get enough of a sense of these people. I mean, I'm sorry, I forget his name, but Slick, you know, Tom Sizemore, who, again, you know, he and Viola Davis should do a stare down. I would like to say that, because they both have such intense eyes. They can project so much intensity with just their eyes. We barely meet his family at all, but you still get an impact of that, you know. And let's see, you've got, and that's also a movie that has all these scenes of, You know, when you're not seeing heists either being planned or being carried out, you're seeing police work. You're seeing, you know, there's constantly something. And again, I'm not saying that it's like just a cheap crowd pleaser. The part of the thing that there we go, it asked, well, if I tell it not to reboot for another 4 hours. There we go. I sincerely doubt I will still be recording this in 4 hours from now. You know, Heat, it's not so much about, there is a little bit about, I guess it's not as much race. It comments on how badly ex-cons are treated. And, you know, one of the big things that he comments on is how difficult it is to have a family, to have connections, whilst also either being a career criminal or a cop who deals with really ugly things. You know, there's that one scene where Al Pacino says, you know, oh, I'd like to share with you you know, it's not necessary to recount the grisly details, but that's part of what that movie is about. And that's, yeah, this movie has a different focus. And I think both movies handle their focus really well. But yeah, if you really, if you want out of your heist movie a lot of gunplay and like these entire scenarios, I mean, I can imagine there probably is going to be someone just straight up going to edit this entire movie down. Just showing briefly them like going over plans very briefly, and you know, maybe the bit where, you know, getting guns, and then them carrying out the heist, and then just the very brief, like, yeah, basically that, you know, and maybe start with the opening with the heist gone wrong, and just call it, you know, Widows the action cut or something. And yeah, this movie is not about long action scenes. There's too much, you know, there are all these character scenes to, you know, to cover, and it really, the movie can't really spare a lot of time for heist stuff. And it's not that much about the heist. It's more about why they need it. Yeah, the movie is more focused on, and I think that's a strength of the movie. It's not so focused on the heist. It's focused on why the different people who are all involved with the heist want the heist to happen. You know, one thing is the various widows, and then Belle, who isn't one of the widows but is the babysitter. You know, why the women want to carry out the heist, what they, you know, what their priorities are. Excuse me. And why Jamal, wants some of the loot, from the heist. And I mean, before the ending, you realize that Harry stole for Jack, and if I understood correctly, it was so that they would have the 5 million that the audit noticed was missing, you know, that had gotten misplaced for political purposes. And yeah, I mean, really every major character is in some way involved in at least one of the heists, at least by proxy. And that's really, I mean, the heist is almost sort of the hook. It's you know, the kind of concept, the you know, what if a heist had to be carried out by the widows of the men who were going to do the heist, and the yeah, it's yeah, that's kind of the clever little idea, the hook for it. But the meat of it, the really interesting thing, is why they're involved with the heist. And but yeah, I mean, I think, you know, the next time I want to watch a heist movie with a lot of action scenes, it's going to be Heat that I put on. But this is, I would say this has more kind of, yeah, this has more social relevance, but Heat isn't really as interested in social relevance. It's, both movies are about the lives of both people carrying out heists and the people that it affects. And yeah, I'm really glad that we have a movie like this, especially in this, you know, it's the role, the way that white people with power affect black people without. That's something incredibly relevant today. And I hope this movie will change some minds. But I guess that's pretty much for the whole this digression. So to get back to the notes. Yeah, so also to place chronologically, because that was about the movie in general. These notes, these specific notes are from the scene where Jack comes to the church to talk to Jamal, and he mocks Daniel's name, which is also it's this. I mean, it's not, you know, it's not some major, like, you know. I'm sure that, you know, Daniel has been mocked far worse, but it is this kind of, you know, it's this white guy with power who walks in and talks to black people who don't really have power but are trying to get some, and he mocks their identity, their culture. I don't know, I didn't look it up, maybe I should have, but I get the sense that Jamal and Dan, you know, their names are African. Their names are more linked to being African American, rather than them trying to, or their parents rather, trying to give them names that would let them fit in really well or something. And just immediately Jack mocks their decision to keep those names, to not change them to something that sounds white, to appease the white. And, you know, Jamal points out, you don't inherit political posts. You know, we have elections. That's and I mean, it's almost, like, you know, but don't they though? Isn't it just inherited with these? And let's see. But yeah, you know, basically Jack is there to try to intimidate them and such. And I did really like, you know, I think Jack just, you know, comes just pull out, and Jamal's like, I'm not gonna pull out when it feels so good, and just yeah, as and you know the I think Daniel's character's name is Jamet. So I'm gonna try to refer to him by that. But yeah, you know, Jamet is like the kind of money that we'd be. What was it? Was it per year or was it per month? Something. It's like we can make that in a week. And Jamal points out when you make, you know, with this kind of job, the people that, you know, when people come after you, they do so with microphones and cameras, whereas what we do when people come after us, they do so with guns, which is also really, I mean, he's not saying I want to, you know, what is it they say? I want to go straight. I don't want to break the law anymore. I don't want to do something illegal to get by. That's not what he says. He's basically saying, I don't want to be in danger anymore. It's not that. And he even brings up, yeah, but you know, okay, so that's what we technically earn, but you can, you know, you've got money that you can, yeah, you know, he goes into that, and yeah, and I mean, Jack is the same way. He also is using the political power. I mean, maybe he's trying to make things better also, but he definitely does, yeah, he's accepted things that he shouldn't have, that were illegal for him too. Excuse me, let me just briefly, just briefly, I wanted to, Jack says, I forget his exact words, but he's basically like, you know, you're a criminal, or you have, you know, you are known as a criminal, or something like that. To which his response is, I've never been arrested. Which is such a good, because that's, you know, that doesn't mean you didn't break the law. That just means you were careful. It means you made sure that it was other people who were in a position to be arrested. Or it means that the people who would have arrested you personally, were too scared. That's not, and it's not even, you know, he's not trying to convince Jack. Jack knows who he is, and he knows who Jack is. He's not trying to convince Jack that he's an innocent citizen. He just points out how, you know, I can't be a criminal. I've never been arrested. You know, you can't, you're not going to intimidate me into backing off because you're going to say that I'm a criminal. Well, I'm going to say that I've never been arrested, and people can look it up. I have never been arrested. And the other thing was that, excuse me, so many such brilliant touches. Right. Jack clearly, you know, yeah, throughout the movie he makes it clear he doesn't want this black man to have power. And there's this brief scene where he, you know, I forget what it stands for, but it's like MWOW or something like that. And he's like, look, all the, you know, created so many jobs. Look, black women. I gave black women jobs. I just don't want their husbands to have power. You know, it's like they're props. They're objects. There's something, you know, there are going to be pictures that you know, you can look at and say, but I'm a black woman, maybe he will get me a job. And then, you know, he hopes that you don't notice that he's trying to prevent a black man from taking power for the first time in this entire district. And that's as if the black man wouldn't also help black people, as if he wouldn't be able to get, you know, jobs. He's trying to steal voters by, yeah, just, you know, pointing to something that he did and refusing, you know, he does give a brief quote after all, but he's trying to avoid facing responsibility for the scandal. You know, he's trying to get people to look away from the scandal and away from the black candidate running against him. Now, and Linda is blamed by her mother-in-law for Carlos being a criminal. You know, she's like, he wanted to go to college. He was going to, you know, and she thinks that Linda, you know, maybe she wanted something that was more expensive than he could have provided if he had gone to college instead of done heists. Maybe she thinks that Linda has criminal leanings or knows people from that world, and that's how it happened. But it's, you know, when you actually look at it, she can't really convince her mother-in-law, but and that is, I'm not going to make any mother-in-law jokes or in-law jokes in general, but I mean, on some level, you know, both of them are mourning Carlos. And she looks at Linda and she's like, the moment that he met you, things started going wrong. It's your fault. You're to blame for him being dead. You took my boy away from me and I can never have him back because you were selfish. And she tries, as Linda, you know, yeah, she tries to get to keep the children, and it's such a, I don't get the sense that the mother-in-law is like some evil vindictive person. She just misunderstands. She doesn't know, because in reality Carlos had wasted all the money that he, you know, from the heists on the bookies and the, you know, yes, Linda wanted this, you know, this store, but it wasn't, you know, if he didn't, the reason he did the heists was so he could gamble, you know, that he didn't even, he gave away the place to the people. I'm just, the people who explained to Linda how that whole thing happened. That's, you have to talk to the person about that. Even if they're gonna yell at you over it, you can't just give away. He let her believe that either he owned it or that she did. And once he's dead, they come as repo men, basically. And, excuse me, there's no scene, we don't see a scene, it's possible that it happens off screen, where Linda confronts her mother-in-law and said, you know, it wasn't, your son didn't do it for me, he did it for the bookies. At the end of the day, Linda probably feels like, you know, that's not her, she doesn't have to know that. She doesn't have to know that about her son. And yeah, it's just, I think that's, and I found also very powerful the scene where Tom says to his son, "You will not be the first Mulligan to lose to an N-word." It so quickly becomes about race for both Mulligans and the people they talk to. It so quickly becomes that white men in power cannot give up that power to black people. That's just not. They don't take a step back and consider, would they do a better job? Is that, you know, the Jack does at one point confront Tom. You know, Tom comes to him and says, "I can't believe you fired this guy." And, you know, Jack is like, "He was doing a bad job. I got someone better." And he says, "You know, Dad, it would be a lot easier to follow in your footsteps if, yeah, just for, I'm gonna swear at least some in this video, possibly as much as in the movie, but I'm not gonna be using the N-word or the C-word. If there wasn't so much shit." And Tom, he doesn't stop and think, if I hadn't abused my power, maybe we wouldn't be in this situation. He gets angry at Jack for the insolence. How dare he question how he wields his power? How dare he? And that's why Jack himself sees it as, you know, it's not that this is a qualified candidate who's going to take care of the constituents. It's just, can't lose to that guy. Because to them, by definition, someone black is inferior to someone white. And that's all that matters to them. You know, they leave, is it the church? Is it when they leave the church, or is it, now it's the other, yeah, it's a later scene where, excuse me, this charged conversation about race between Jack and Siobhan, and yeah, just immediately, it's not, you know, would they be, I could understand if, you know, you as a politician, if you see, this candidate, he's doing really well, but I know he's going to do a bad job. He's going to hurt the constituency. But that's not what they're talking about. And I'm not saying that, obviously Jamal is also looking to abuse that power. But, you know, the Mulligans don't bring up, oh, well, you know, they don't talk about whether Jamal would do a better or worse job, other than that they assume that a black man would not be as good. And also when the confrontation, is it a gym? I guess it kind of looks like, when with the intense eyes as the other guy's rapping, and then and after a while he actually seems like he's getting into it. He thinks they're doing, he likes the and then suddenly he just shoots one of them and tells the other one to run, and then shoots him as he's running. It's not, he doesn't, there's not some like hesitation. It's not that he's like, oh well, I mean, I had to shoot him, he was running, he would have said something. No, he tells the guy to run, and then he shoots him. It's just, he didn't want him to beg, he wanted to shoot him as he was running away. It's not, it's a different kind of sadistic, and they don't even get a chance. He specifically, they try to explain, although I suppose in his, to him it's, oh well, they're just making excuses. And yeah. And let's see. Was it Amanda, maybe, who said that she felt like her husband was thinking, oh, why are we, so something like, thinking that maybe Harry was getting sloppy, and, Veronica points out, he did this for 30 years, he didn't make mistakes. I'm not sure from what I noted, and I forget because there's so many details in this movie, but something about, maybe one of them brought up, why would you rob from the Manning brothers, because that was obviously dangerous. Actually, maybe is it the Manning? I think there's at least one scene where the Manning brothers, or at least briefly, discuss why did, he had his gang, I have mine, we both knew that, we stayed clear of each other. Why did he suddenly, why did he suddenly rob me when we never messed with each other before? We both respected the other's turf. And, it's the I forget if there's an actual line to this effect, but basically, I mean, when Harry stole, when Harry stole the money with the other three guys, he knew that this is money that would go towards the political campaign of Jamal. So, getting $5 million for Jack helps with the scandal, and also stealing it from his competition. So it was and then Harry was, hoping that the Jack would be robbed, and he would get the money from that. And let's see. Right, and Jamal points out that the cops are not going to care about Veronica. They're not going to care about the widow of one of the widows of any of the robbers that they killed. And there's that brief bit, the dog Veronica carries it with her in a bunch of scenes. I saw someone say, it reminded them of like watching a child, and that it was childlike of her to be carrying around the dog. The dog is almost always calm, and like there's almost never, but it clearly gets scared with Jamal. I was really relieved when he didn't. I really thought that he might kill the dog or something. And it like it's yipping like crazy. Is that the term, yipping? When when it smells Harry behind the door. I don't think that was the, let's see. Yeah, I didn't note that specifically, but obviously Veronica knows, she basically knows from when she hears the dog start yipping. She's like, he never does. Sorry, she never does. She calls it Olivia, so it must be a female dog. She never does that. The only reason she possibly be doing that is if Harry is inside. And then she doesn't open the door to Harry inside, but she also doesn't say anything to Amanda. She just picks up Olivia and leaves. And that, obviously she knows, but she doesn't want to confront either of them with that. Maybe she feels like she can't confront them with that. And I didn't catch the name, but there was this, I guess, radio interview, basically. There was a character driving, I think it might have been, I'm going to try not to mess up the pronunciation. Jamet. I think it might have been him in the car, and there's this black prisoner who talks about, it doesn't matter how much, it's a difficult thing when you realize that it doesn't matter how much you change yourself, you can't make any difference in your life. And he talks about how for 20 years he did not get any disciplinary, he never caused problems. And it did not matter to the parole board. At no point did they say, clearly you are no longer a threat. He was in there and they were going to keep him in there. And and you have the bit with the journalist asking about the audit, the $5 million of waste, and then you have, this is where I noted anyway, that Jack, Siobhan, Tom, and these, the moment that they're not in public, they swear and they denigrate black people very readily. And I did think that, I'm not sure if it was here, I'm not going to go into too much detail about the bit where the camera remains still on the on the car, and we see minutes pass and it goes from this really poor neighborhood to this really rich neighborhood. I feel like what I have to say about that has already been said by Feminist Frequency and Film Brain. But I do think, they have this racial discussion, and literally, Siobhan, basically says, this is all about who's got the bigger dick. Or, I don't remember the exact words, but it's something like that. And yeah, I mean, he's like, have you ever slept with a black man? What? Answer the question. Have you ever slept with a black man? And I don't think she ever does answer for sure. And I can imagine, I mean, on one level, she probably feels incredibly insulted that he'd ask that, and that he would, and him asking is obviously to denigrate her. If she had said yes, even if it was only once that she did, he would consider her a traitor to the white race. How dare you sleep with someone black when you're not black yourself? And she knows that that's what's going to happen if she does say yes. And yeah, it's being insulted by the question being asked. And it's not like, I mean, there are situations where you can discuss sexual partners, but they literally just left the place and talking about black, yeah, he's insecure, and he either for her to validate him and say, of course not, I would never sleep with a black man. I'm not attracted to black men. I'm only attracted to you. I'm only attracted to good white men. Or for her to be someone he can take it out on. How dare you sleep with a black man? And I also when the widows first meet, and Veronica says that Harry was her husband, immediately, and I don't get the sense that she's like, again, she's not a hateful person, but Linda immediately goes, how did you meet? As if there's some kind of, I mean, that can be an awkward question just in general, but you're both grieving over your husbands. At this point, it's been, what, 2 weeks? This isn't really not the time to get into something like that. And it is this thing of, how did you score a white one? Wow, that is impressive. I want to give us the details. Like she caught someone who scored well on a math test, or someone who could get some really good weed or something, just as if there's some kind of as if there has to be some kind of explanation there, rather than just whatever. They people meet and fall in love. That's life, but no, there's got to be, there's a story here. There's a story here. And you owe it to you have to tell why. How did this happen? This is, like they caught her doing something wrong, and they want to hear just that really struck me. I mean, it's almost like one of those when like someone who, when someone will just go up to a black person and touch their hair as if they're entitled to it. Just, I very recently rewatched From Dusk Till Dawn, because I own it and I love it. And that's also, it's like, no, preacher who's grieving, please tell me, not even please, tell me, how did, what happened? Tell me about the, open up and let me ogle at your scars and your wounds, and just, yeah. And we have the scene with the preacher. I think he said specifically, was it priest or I don't remember. I'm gonna call him preacher. I hope that's not disrespectful. And you know, the we see the entire black congregation, and Jamal is there, and he's nodding to what the preacher's saying, and you really get the sense that he means it. No, it is, and it is. It's a great speech. It just I've long said that, you know, when white people forced black people to be Christians, you know, once the black people had a chance, they were like, we're not just gonna sit here and be bored by someone speaking monotonously. No, come on. Let's add some energy to this. Let's make it a passionate, you know, and it cracks me up that there are some white people who get super offended at that. As far as I know, being in church, listening to sermons, that's not like a punishment for something. It's supposed to be that you're receiving God's word. Why is that supposed to be boring? There's no good reason for that to be boring. It's not as though he's like saying things that they, you know, he's talking about serious issues, and he's very direct. You know, it's not as if it's just, you know, I've used over an hour and I've barely gotten through my notes. I guess, I probably have to try to not digress so much. There's so much in this movie. Anyway, so briefly, you know, afterwards here I wrote pastor. Maybe that's what his title is. I mean no disrespect to religious people. I don't really know the titles. And, you know, it's like the you know, he says, I'm going first. Okay. You know, what is it he says? I've known, you know, the Mulligan family for, you know, decades. And Jamal's like, oh, but, you know, come on, Jack Mulligan isn't helping anyone. Like I said, I know them. You know, he's been supporting them, but he's willing to support someone else, and he's not blind. No, they don't help people. And they talk about how if he could contribute to Jamal, and then he answers the phone and it's Jack. And let's see. Yes, and it's David and Alice. I mean, I think I've got a little bit more about David and Alice. Right, and I'm also not going to talk about, I'm trying not to repeat what was said well in, you know, the by feminist frequency. What's it called again? It's not freak out. Crap. I'm sorry. There are too many details. I watch it every week, but I don't often remember what the show is called. But is it Freak Show? That might be it. Yeah. And the, you know, Film Brain review and the Midnight Screenings episode. But this is, I made this note way after it was said in the movie, but I realized I really wanted to mention, you know, Alice's mother, you know, points out, when you were 15, you were living with the boy you were, you know, the boy you were sleeping with and such. And Alice points out, they didn't pay me, you know, I didn't accept money for sleeping with them. And that is, you know, that is a distinction that a lot of people don't understand, don't want to understand, that it doesn't, sex doesn't have to be a transaction. It doesn't have to mean that someone owes someone something else. It can, you know, if she slept with them and lived with them, it doesn't mean that she slept with them just so she could live with them. It might mean that she wanted to be with them, and that involved both sleeping with them and living with them, you know. But yeah, and yeah, just briefly, you know, David and Alice, it's he, yeah, I've already gone into some of it. Some of the things I want to mention is he gets angry or annoyed when she has a sudden, like when you know, she thinks it's her mother, when someone comes over unannounced. And then, you know, in a later scene, she asks, why can't we be at your place? And he says, we're not married, you know, I don't. Yeah. And it's this thing, he genuinely thinks that she, I mean, for one thing, she can't control how the people in her life, if someone's going to suddenly show up unannounced, you know, that's not her responsibility. There are people who don't have the boundaries that would be healthy for and when she thinks it's her mother, I mean, clearly she doesn't have a healthy relationship with her mother, but that's, you know, that's one thing. But then he, especially if they're never at his place, if they're at her place, he doesn't have a right to be angry that someone showed up when, you know, that doesn't, yeah. And but the fact that he thinks that A, he gets to decide where they are when they're together, and B, that she should always just be ready for him. And, you know, C, he thinks that she should be able to drop everything and immediately, what was it, the next day or something, go with him to Shanghai. And yeah, he doesn't. I saw a thing on Twitter. I don't know. I guess it's weeks ago by now. But there was someone who said, you know, just heard a guy describe what he looks for in a girlfriend, and it's basically an assistant. And that is, he just, you know, he'd rather eat with her than eat alone, and he wants to have sex with her without having more of a commitment, and without just, going to the same prostitute over and over or something. And that he genuinely thinks that she should just be able to, I mean, in his mind, he's giving her things, he's paying for this, you know, way of life and such, and just the because he does that for her, that means that she should live her life entirely according to what he wants from her, you know, and then he won't even marry her or give any kind of long-term commitment. Just, yeah. I think the movie uses, I haven't seen her in very much, but she has a sort of statuesque beauty to her. And I'd like to think that I would have realized that even if I hadn't seen her as a literal statue, literal golden statue in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And that is, you know, yeah, she's an obvious, you know, when you have a kind of escort service and that kind of thing, you know, yeah, the women who are the most immediately visually attractive are some of the ones that are gonna, gonna attract a lot. But the movie doesn't just, David objectifies her, but the movie doesn't. I really appreciate that. Yeah. And right, and you have this scene where, Belle, she just got home, and she's called on the phone. She's like, "Oh, I can be there in 20 minutes." "Oh, no cab. And I think it's her mother, and she's like, "You just got home. Your daughter's been waiting for you for hours. Can you at least? I'll make you some food." Just and she immediately leaves, and you see, and the daughter, the moment that Belle comes in, the daughter comes up, all excited, and Belle is just leaves, and the daughter just stands there, and it's just. And that's her life. That's how she gets by. She doesn't have the luxury of saying, "I just got home. I can't be there in 20 minutes. I'm sorry. I need a little bit more rent." She can't afford that. She's a babysitter and she works at the beauty salon, and she can just barely get by. And it's basically this gig economy. And again, it's a short scene. It doesn't spend very long conveying this, but it conveys it so well. Just that this, there are millions of people who live like that. There are, and just, yeah, there's no, and it just, it's, yeah. And she runs for 10 or 20 seconds maybe to get from her home to the bus. And I'm not sure, was it immediately after she left the house, or was it once she started running? Something, one of those two. Right up until the point where she entered the bus, she was constantly being catcalled. Like, everyone was like, you're hot, and you can't run from the police, and all this, and just, again, and you get the sense that that's what she's used to experiencing, and to anyone who says, "Oh, look what she's wearing." Okay, what? She's not like, half naked or something. What she's wearing makes complete sense for, not that it would be okay in that situation either, but she's not wearing anything even remotely provocative. And the bowling, that was really, I knew that was going to be a very tough scene, and just, he stabs him in the shoulder, and he knocks him over onto the bowling lane, and kicks away the baton that the guy had, and stabs him in the legs, and he's like, "Oh, you can't even feel that, can you?" And then he stabs him in the shoulder. "Oh, you can feel that, can't you?" And he's like, "This is like that game Operation," and just, and yeah, and that's the thing. If this movie had been a miniseries, scenes like this would have been longer, and that would have been really. I haven't watched yet 12 Years a Slave, but I have watched video analysis of it where, I know about the shot where, where he is hanging there for this really long shot, and you see, people there, and no one's doing anything to get him back down, and the shot just lasts. And yeah, scenes like this in this movie would be a lot longer if the movie didn't have so many things to convey in the amount of time it has. And yeah, you know, he's mocking him, and and they talk about the notebook, and then there's the call where he's like, you know, did you get rid of it? And she's like, oh yeah, I got rid of it. And he's like, oh, that's good. And you can tell that there's someone else in the room, and the camera never did show who that was. I guess that might be Harry. Harry there to make sure that she did, because he says later, I assumed you were going to sell the book to Jamal. And, you know, after all that, he even leaves him still lying on the bowling lane. You know, it's not as if he couldn't have, like, helped him up. Oh, you know, what if he had attacked? No, he could have helped him up. He could have helped him back into the wheelchair. He didn't have to leave him lying there. And, you know, they meet up at the secret meeting place, and not only is Alice late, but she also shows up wearing, you know, this evening dress kind of thing, which, you know, they think, you know, that's you know, unprofessional. It's also, you know, in that part of town, you maybe don't want to wear something like that. And it's, you know, there's that line of, you know, our lives are not as simple as yours, and it's maybe also some naivete of her. I'm not entirely sure. Of Alice, sorry. And yeah, and, you know, after the meeting with Veronica, there's like, you know, I think she's crazy. Yes, but, you know, but there's money, and so let's see where this goes. And let's see. And yeah, Alice has to go by these. Wow, I think I wrote at least 3 different notes here in one. Okay. I cannot tell whether, but I think it's you know, she buys this car, and, you know, this guy helps her get it, and that's, you know, her appearance, she tends to get she gets people's attention because she looks great, but she also has this air of sort of innocence, so people realize that she needs help. And thankfully, at least some of them help her. But yeah, you know, she spends a lot of money on that car, and he even said, you know, this is way too much. You're paying more than, you know, much more than it's worth and such. And then she actually tries. She didn't realize that she would need a driver's license. You know, she does, and so she has to call in Veronica so she can go there and drive when she's dealing with other things. You know, she has stuff of her own to prepare. And, you know, yeah, she thought that she would be able to tell them, can you deliver it to this address or something. And let's see. And yeah, and she's, you know, she's this other place, and, you know, they're buying, they're buying guns, and she's like, she can't quite figure out. So she pretends to be a mail order bride, and talk. She finds someone who clearly knows what they're doing there, so she can get help. And also, it struck me throughout the gun scene, they're basically walking around like they're at just like a like a supermarket or something. Like they're looking at guns like you look at clothes, yeah, like you're going clothes shopping or something. Like they don't at all look like they respect how dangerous these. I mean, hopefully there isn't any, there are no bullets in any of these things, but I mean, far as I know, one of the first rules you learn when dealing with guns is always act as though the gun is loaded. And it's insane the way they just, and it's beautifully shown. They're just, this is how casual people are around these guns. And you've also got these like swords, presented there, and just, it's, yeah, it doesn't. And there's this, she talks to this she talks to this woman who's clearly more familiar with buying guns, and her daughter says, "But mommy, you're always saying a gun is a girl's best friend." And just, yeah, and it doesn't take very long to say, oh, I need 3 Glocks. And she's like, that's a lot of firepower. And she said, I need one for every room. And that's it. That's the only, there's no further discussion. She doesn't have to be talked into it excuse me. It just, yeah. And, Linda is going around. She's working to find out, this building plan thing, and she goes to this office, and she's like, I'm sorry, I was hired by I'm working as a secretary for this. I've only been there a week, and they told me I really had to get this, so and she's like, okay, I'll break the rules and help you because I don't want to get you fired. And the moment that she leaves, immediately she takes all these business cards, which if she did that in front of the receptionist, yeah, if she did that in front of her, she'd be like, what are you doing? Those, you're not supposed to just take one after, but it's a good way to try to find the to get the answer. It's a good investigation tactic. Yeah, whatever. And then she gets the address, and she goes to this, this guy, and she's like, I'm working for the, actually, yeah, sorry, that's where she says, I'm working as a secretary for, anyway. And she's like, she gets in there, and then she's like, can I talk to your wife? And he's like, I don't want, I'm not interested in you, I'm not interested in the people who sent you. Please leave my property. And it's this thing of, you said you were working for them, but everyone working there knows that my wife died 4 months ago. And there's this brief, like, then she, tells him she's grieving too. Her husband died. And just, at first they just, for a few seconds, it's, they clearly have a lot of similar pain. They're in a similar situation. And they seem to like give, a comforting and reassuring hug. But then they start kissing and continue for several seconds, and then Linda does say, I'm sorry. But they're they both miss the person, you know, their significant other, and they're so, it hurts so much, and they know they're never going to get that person back, and suddenly, just briefly, they're feeling a sort of intimacy, you know, in this, and again, there's so many movies that wouldn't have shown that. I mean, it's essentially, it's a scene you could cut from a plot perspective. It doesn't, I'm not sure it forwards the plot particularly. I mean, you know, the fact that, okay, she can't get any information from, what's her name, Delia something, because she's dead. You know, you could have accomplished that with a shot of her, like, just, you know, she's written in pen, like, you know, okay, I need something from this name, and then, you know, just cut to where it says Delia, and she crosses out and writes, died 4 months ago. You know, that accomplishes. But the pain that they share, and the fact that can get sort of, I mean, it's not a healthy thing, but it is a natural thing. It's an understandable reaction that they, yeah. And let's see. Right, and Jamal says, you know, don't touch the wife. I don't want that kind of heat. And Jack refers to Jamal as, you know, gay. I'm not going to use the exact word. And, you know, again, just to denigrate him. You know, he's talking to, like, his colleagues or something, you know. Yeah, people from a similar, you know, social circle or such. And yeah, just to denigrate him. Again, he's not even, it's not like, I know this guy, I've heard his ideas and they're bad, they're going to hurt people. No, he's attacking him on these completely superficial, yeah. And then we have the thing of, you know, if you had a child with someone other than me, he would still be alive. And yeah, right there we realize, you know, we hadn't been told exactly, we didn't know why their son died. We just know that he died at 19, because we saw his grave very briefly when we saw Harry's. And I mean, it was almost, we really should have figured, I guess I probably should have figured, you know, he committed the crime of being black and American. And that's when we meet Amanda, the widow who did not show up at the spa. And yeah, then you have the conversation, you know, Harry did heists for 30 years, he didn't make mistakes. And Daniel attacks Bash, and even, you know, we find out they even have him killed. And the violence is off screen, and it actually isn't Daniel who he I think he starts it. Yeah, he's like, I did not, I can't. He said something about two something. I'm not sure, but he orders them to do it, and then he walks over and turns on the TV and increases the volume so that, you know, people nearby won't hear the screams. And let's see. And we see, you know, Alice with David, and you know, she basically trades her body for the information. You know, she's like, can you get me this information? And she, you know, she climbs on top, and then they, you know, they flip around, and he's on top of her, and he's not looking at her face, but we are, and it's completely clear she's definitely not enjoying the sex. It's possible that it's even painful, or at least not necessarily physically painful, but she's not, you know, she does not want it. And he either doesn't notice or doesn't care. And she doesn't, you know, she doesn't say no or say stop or something, and she doesn't try to physically fight him off. I'm not saying that you know, she's not at fault, obviously, but this is something that she basically, she chooses not to, because some part of her thinks, if I say no, he's not going to get me the information. The only way the heist is going to work is if I give myself to him, so he gives me the information. And you know, Veronica slaps Alice, and Alice slaps her back, and Veronica is clearly surprised, and this is the first time she slaps back. You know, she's been slapped. I think it might have been more than a slap, but she was hit by her husband, John Bernthal. She was slapped by her mother, and now also by Veronica, but now she slaps back, and she's more confident. And they have the meeting where, you know, Linda says, if this goes wrong, do you understand, you know, have either of you ever been to jail? 6 days. Find a fucking driver. You know, and that's, yeah, it is both of them have not been near, and it's not entirely clear if she herself was in jail or if she visited someone in jail. But I mean, one could imagine that the husband might have gambled too much and temporarily gone to prison because he couldn't pay back, you know, and she visited him there, and it's possible that she, you know, but again, it's a good, and we have the dog yipping at the door forever, not stopping, and we see that Harry lived and is Amanda's. Dog recognized, and Veronica knew. And then we see that Harry, not only did he survive, he has the money, and he was working for Jack. You know, when we saw that he survived, my first thought was, oh, so he made it out of the car and then ran away before being seen. But then, no, we see he got the money. The money wasn't in the car when it blew up, and he blew up the car so that there wouldn't be any, you know, if it's blown up entirely, then it's a lot harder to say, oh, well, there's supposed to be 4 guys, where's the 4th body? They could just say, you know. And there's also, they mention that there's this cop who, is, you know, making problems. He needs to be paid off or something. And, you know, Jack says, I need the money back, and before the election, or you will be alive again in the, in the worst ways, or something like that. And the scene the flashback to 2008 of Marcus, I thought it was really brilliantly handled, because when you see his grave very early in the film, you only see it very briefly, but you know clearly, okay, and that's their kid's grave. It says Marcus, and he lived from 89 to 2008. 2008 is kind of an important year for black people, power, and politicians. That's so that sticks. And the fact that he was so young, that's also a detail that sticks. So when it then shows us this teenager driving a car, and he's being kind of careless, and he's talking on the phone, you know, immediately we realize. I mean, I think, yeah, no, we don't actually hear the other voice on the phone. We just hear him, and he just says mom and dad, I think. But yeah, so, you know, we know this is Marcus, this is their kid, and we're about to watch him die. And, you know, he drives, and he's talking about, why are you yelling at me? I didn't know it was in the car. Yeah, it's here, it's in the car. If I drive back now, I'm going to miss half the game. No, the game isn't more important than your anniversary. Okay, you know what? Fine. I'm going back. And because he's annoyed, so he's not thinking, he's like, I'm going to miss the game. And he's like, but it's their anniversary. It's a big deal to them. And he's got the thing. So he doesn't stop and think, I have to find a proper place to turn. Instead, he makes an illegal U-turn. And I mean, we can see clearly he's not actually, like, he didn't cause a crash, he didn't almost cause a crash. There was no high-speed traffic in the area where he made a U-turn. You know, you want to talk high-speed traffic. The car that Jack and Siobhan is in drives past, and they actually, you know, the other car stops, but I think they're driving like here in the other car. It gets, you know, okay, not quite as close as that makes it seem. I don't know, maybe 5 meters, and it honks, and clearly they had the right of way, but Jack's not used to having to wait, so he doesn't have to wait. That could have caused a crash. But, you know, Marcus and so the cop, and that's also it's so beautifully filmed, because before he makes the turn, you see there's a cop car right there, and you immediately, you know exactly what's going to happen. And that's, again, you know, maybe someday there will be, like, I don't know, maybe he did film really, really long versions of these scenes, and maybe they'll put out a mini series version, and scenes like this will be agonizingly long instead of relatively swiftly over and moving on, so that it doesn't completely destroy us, demoralize us. But and Marcus should have seen the cop car, and even if you're going to do something stupid in a car, at least look around to see if there's police around. And I'm not saying you should do something stupid in a car, but he's like, and he pulls over. He immediately pulls, the moment he realizes there's a car, he pulls over, and he's like, Dad, I'm being pulled over, there's a cop, I need to. And then I think either it was that the little, like, box, either he had put it in, like, the glove box but not closed the glove box, so it maybe fell onto the floor of the car, or something like that, you know. So he pulls over, and he's like, oh, sorry, and he reaches down for it and puts it back in the glove box, something like that. And the cop is like, you know, I forget what exactly, but, you know, put your hands where I can see them, or something like that. Put them on the dash, you know, something. And because he moves, the cop immediately just pulls the trigger, and it's such, you just, the it was completely unnecessary. You didn't have to shoot, and it's, and both before and after and possibly during the shooting, you know, as possibly even as the bullet is fired, you see these brick walls on, you know, on either side of the road that he's on, plastered with Obama Hope posters. And it's such a stark reminder, because it's true. Obama was president for 8 years, and it was still and is still to this day a huge problem for, you know, black people in America can't get behind the wheel of a car if they expect not to be shot by a cop. And unfortunately, we know even if they don't get behind the wheel of a car, they, you know, it's that image of this kid being shot by a white cop. He was being a little careless about the U-turn, but that's it. He didn't do anything. He wasn't a threat. And, you know, this movie comes out, you know, is there these days, does a week pass without us hearing of at least one person who called the cops on someone black who did nothing wrong, who was babysitting white kids, or who went door to door, you know, for political purposes? Just, yeah, it's a very powerful image, and I'm really glad movies like this are being made. And I know there are going to be people who say, oh, well, he should have done what the cop said. And let's see, yeah, just briefly, you know, David basically thinks that Alice owes him the, you know, this trip to Shanghai, that he doesn't, you know, I mean, eventually he accepts, okay, she can't go with, but he's not like, that's okay, you know what, we'll see each other when I get back. And they argue about getting a driver. I wrote that on the same page. I'm not entirely sure which of those came first. And I appreciate, you know, Linda brings in Belle, and Belle demands respect from Veronica. You know, she's like, I'm standing right here. You talk directly to me. And we realized that, again, this might have been a scene or something, but around this point, we realized that the heist was to steal from Jack. And Veronica goes into Jack's place, and it's like, you know, oh, I've come to talk to the candidate. You know, for that, they're not like, I don't know, I don't know you, so, you know, you're allowed to come in and talk to this. She's dressed nicely. She's perfectly calm and eloquent. So yeah, sure, she's come to talk to the candidate. And, you know, once the moment that she has the chance, she walks up the stairs, and she does get caught, but she does a good job covering for herself with, oh, I'm sorry, I was looking for the bathroom, and then I was struck by how this is a stunning looking map. So I was just standing, oh, that's the bathroom. Okay, you know, come with. And that was also, I didn't realize at the time, but that was of course set up for that, you know, that's where he has the little room to keep the money. And yeah, this is also, and a lot of the stuff in the movie happens so fast, so I don't get to note everything the moment that I, mean to. Keeping in mind, as it's a pad of paper I have to flip over every time I fill a page. So, and usually I don't wait until I fill the page. I just write one brief thing and then flip over, so I don't accidentally write over what I wrote. But yeah, we realize there's only one security guard, which, I mean, it's not a big place, so I guess that's, yeah, okay. And apparently, he comes in to use the bathroom, and the guy's like, "You got a weak bladder." And my wife says I need to drink 8 glasses of water a day, which tells me that they have not heard of Adam Conover. And I will say it's maybe a tiny bit convenient that just, as he goes over to borrow, to go to the bathroom, Belle is, she made her run, and she's like looking over and she happens to hear that at that exact moment. Almost nothing in the film felt like overly convenient. That was maybe a little bit. I feel like, I don't know, I mean, I guess it would be too tech heavy if she was like, okay, so there's definitely something interesting here, I'm just gonna stick a little camera with a microphone, and then, later she is like, okay, let me fast forward through the footage. Oh, okay, here the security guard leaves. Let's see if he says anything interesting. And it is also a little, I mean, I get how you would, in that situation, talk about that particular thing, but yeah, it's a little, actually, yeah, I thought that was gonna mean that he was gonna need to go to the bathroom and they could plan the heist accordingly, but I guess now that I think about it, it didn't, was there just not a payoff to that, or was it just, I don't know, I mean, yeah, they ultimately didn't, anyway, yeah, and, Tom and Jack argue, and Tom says it's important that the illegal aliens and the people who can't stop making babies, that they don't get the power, or something like that. And just, yeah, really just, again, that is something that, I mean, he's essentially quoting, the major Republicans with that. And Jack literally tells him, I look forward to you dying. It's so great that I look forward to a time when we're not going to have this problem because you're not going to be here anymore. And, and the, let's see, yeah, there's this Asian woman sitting on the sofa waiting to get into Jack. And, Veronica comes back down the stairs and she goes over to sit at the sofa. And Veronica does sit at the other end of the sofa. And the Asian woman doesn't actually have anywhere further to go, but she still kind of tries to, see if she can get further away from this black woman. And just, again, so telling. And, Jack outright says that he is not going to help Veronica, which, yeah, his father would probably have. And, excuse me. Now, and, he says, I mean, you'll have to go to the police if there's some crime you want to report. And yeah, she's like, we both have wow, right now, Manning, sorry. We both have a did she just say Manning, or did she specifically say Jamal Manning? Problem. And he's like, you're not in my district. You're not so, yeah. and then Belle, she talks to the hair salon, she's like, I've seen that guy before in the hair salon, and then she goes and talks to the girl who owns the hair salon, and she's like, I'm a black independent business owner. I am a black woman owning my own business. And the only way that could happen was to borrow money from a politician, because no bank would loan her money. And she says, I want to own my own place, and this way I can at least feel like I am owning. And yes, I have to pay them some of what I owe, which, that's, I mean, I could maybe understand if she was like paying off the loan or something, but it sounds more like they just keep taking, some of her income regardless of if she's paid the loan or not. And let's see, yeah, and Linda and Belle, because Veronica hasn't shown up yet, they start mocking her, behind her back. And then Veronica does show up, and she's like, do you know why we needed a new driver? Because the last one was killed. So if you two aren't going to be serious, which really made me wonder if she was gonna explain that, here's a joke. 5 girls sitting in San Quentin wondering why their heist went wrong. And then they stopped to realize, oh hey, when we were doing all the planning, we were just sitting around cracking jokes. And I think I've said it before, but it bears repeating, David doesn't really respect Alice. And, she says, you talk as if it's your life, it's my life to live and to either feel shame or pride over, to fuck up or not. And it really, he does not care about what happens to her, basically. He just expects her to be there whenever he needs. And I quite liked it, he's like, okay, whatever. Can I give you a ride? And she's like, I'll get where I need to go myself. I really appreciated that. Nice, yeah. Then, her confidence. I'm not sure how much else I've seen Lucas Haas in, who plays David, but I do remember, I knew I'd seen his face somewhere before, so I looked it up. I've definitely seen him in Mars Attacks, which I might have to watch again at some point. It's been ages since I watched it, but yeah. I quite like, or at least did last time. It's possible that I need to reassess them, but the early kind of Tim Burton, Edward Scissorhands, Mars Attacks, and there's at least one more around that area. There are definitely positive qualities to his Batman movies. But yeah, some of the 90s ones there I quite like. Jack Nicholson's dual role, and the Veronica needs the security code, so she uses the pictures to blackmail the guy who he cheated, what was it, on his wife with her niece or something like that. And again, those images were, when we first saw them, we knew this is going to be important later. So when she shows them to him, we're not like, where did she get those? We're like, oh, okay, this is the payoff to that thing. And let me think, I was going to say something else. in relation to that, I think, but now I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, and you know, he's like, I can't keep doing this. This is like the third or fourth time that, you know, alarms haven't worked on my, you know, people are starting to get suspicious. And you know, he's crying, and she's like, you know, deal with it, and you know, and then he drives up and he throws the picture, you know, the code thing at her, and drives off, and it's just, I get being like frustrated, and you know, it sucks being blackmailed, but he did cheat. You know, it's not, he doesn't exactly have any moral high ground here. I mean, if he thought that if he thought there was you know, moral high ground here, well, all right then, report her to the police. She just said that she's going to commit a crime, so report her to the police. But he's not going to do that, because then people will know he cheated. And right, and you know, Jack goes to Jamal and says, you know, I will, you know, you'll be the first black alderman in this area, and you know, I will advise on the important stuff, but publicly you will have the power. And just, it's this thing where basically he thinks that this power is not something that the voters give to the person they trust most. He thinks it's something that his family has, and they can give to other people. They can give shares of it to other people. And he's willing to say, oh, you know what, you'll be the face. You will, and you know, your name will be, you know, I'm going to be making decisions. But you'll, you know, it just, yeah. And, you know, Belle distracts the cops with setting these cars on fire with the flares, and they take the security guard at gunpoint and then tase him and tie him up. And we hear that they have voice modulators, which, you know, I didn't think much of, but when we earlier saw, one of Linda's kids was using it, and like as a joke. So she had bought them and, you know, was preparing to use them for this. And yeah, it's, again, a really great, excuse me. And they find this, the you know, door into the little room behind the map, and they type in the code, excuse me, twice, and it's like, it's not doing it. It's not the right one. And then she's like, wait, no, it's upside down. And she turns it upside down, and she inputs it the new way, the upside down way, and we hear the tones. It's just about to sound, you know, to start the alarm, and just at the last, you know, last second, she gets it in right. And this is a moment that you feel so cliched and so forced, but it doesn't. He makes it work. They make it work, absolutely. I mean, it's how many times have we seen that before in heist movies? Oh no, it's upside down, because 6 and 9, you know, 6 is 9 upside down, 8 looks the same upside down. So, and the how Hollywood of cliche is it? You know, oh, just at the, we have to be quick, and oh, thank goodness. Just, you know, there was like 0.1 second left before the whole thing, but we got it just in time. But the movie makes it work. I wasn't sitting there like, oh, come on. Which, by all rights, I mean, these are two such cliche things, but yeah, it doesn't feel it. And Mulligan, excuse me, shows up, and he has a gun, of course, because he's this old conservative guy. So yeah, and he shoots Alice in the shoulder and gets the others to like put down their guns, but then and then he's like he lifts the mask on Veronica, and he's like, he remembers her. That's right, sorry, it's not Veronica who shoots, it's Linda who shoots him as he's staring at Veronica. And yeah. And then, Daniel carjacks them. He had a gun on Belle, and they got in, with the bag of money post heist, and yeah. And then they stole another car. It took a few seconds because they had to get a car that was big enough for the loot. They knew that they're not gonna be able to count on using the car Daniel took from them, and they shot him from that car so that they could use this new car to as a getaway car, getting money in. And I really do. I mean, again, I saw it in the trailer a million times because I watched it so many times, but the shot where he's sitting there, he can't move. All he can do is stare at as the I don't know what it's called, but the thing is like sticking out, and the car drives up and like bends in when it hits that. That was, yeah. And Linda makes sure to get Alice to the hospital, and she claims, oh, she was shot in an open street. It was a drive-by, and they accept that, and she identifies her as Jennifer, which, I mean, I think that was what it said on the driver's license or ID or something that she. Wait, was that? I mean, it wasn't her real name, was it? I have to. That was the thing that went a little too fast for me. And something I kind of. This was where I noted that. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I feel like the black women don't get along in the movie. It's like they're really harsh critics of each other. Belle argues with the owner of the hair salon, and Veronica, at first she won't even talk directly to Belle, and Belle asserts herself. I get that, at first Veronica's like, what are you thinking bringing someone else into it that I haven't vetted? But she could talk to Belle and say, we don't need your help, leave, or something. And she even says, I can leave if that's, but you talk to me, And yeah, and at the, what's it called? The meeting place, Harry is there, and he's like, he thought that Veronica would sell Jamal the notebook so that Jamal would do the heist, and Harry would just steal from him when he returned to the, I guess he might have used a different place to. Anyway, yeah, Harry was intending to steal the money from him. And let's see. And Harry slaps Veronica, and she slaps him, and then, he gets out a gun and points, and we hear a gunshot, and for a second we're like, oh no, he killed her, but then it cuts, and he falls over, and we see that she got her gun out just in time and shot him. And this is where I noted there are a lot of twists in this last chunk of the film, and I don't know if it's the last half hour or what exactly, but yeah. And there were twists earlier than that. And, she puts Mulligan's pistol in Harry's hand, which I don't think they say outright, but I mean that, yeah, that gun can be could likely be tied to the bullet in in Alice. So that means that it would look as though Harry was the one who shot her, which would mean less, problems for the, And Veronica drives away in the car with the money, and Jack won the election because, his father dying led to a lot of sympathy votes, so he won really big, which is also, that's such. Why should he win an election just because his father died? That doesn't have. But yeah, ultimately that's the. It's such a silly thing that one thing doesn't follow the other. The fact that his father died doesn't mean that he's a better candidate, and we don't see Jack after that point, but I mean, he said he was looking forward to his father dying, so there's some chance that he's actually relieved. And, Belle, left some money for the owner of the hair salon, and Linda is able to buy back the store and goes back in, and there's a sense of satisfaction, of ownership. Right, and Alice and Veronica are both in this coffee shop, and at first, Veronica spots her and looks like, okay, this is wrong. There's something, but then we see, and Alice, like a friend of hers comes by and she talks. And then we see that Veronica was waiting for her, and that was why she didn't want it to be messed up. She was basically sitting there like, please don't come over and talk to me because that's going to mess this up, And the gang comes over and she's like, under the table there's a bag of money. Use it to rebuild the school library. The only thing I ask is that you name it after Marcus. And then with that done, I think Alice leaves the coffee shop first, and then Veronica comes out after, and she's like, Alice, how's it going? She's not businesslike. She's not this kind of controlling and very direct, and just she genuinely seems like she's glad she happened to, they no longer have a connection. They don't go, they didn't have anything in common before, and they don't, and now they also don't, because the heist is over. And she didn't get to talk to her after the heist, when she got shot, and she caught up with her, and she's genuinely happy to see her, and she smiles. Veronica smiles for the first time in the movie outside of flashbacks, and I thought that was really compelling. And that, I've also seen several reviewers say, the ending has a smile and it feels so earned, and it was basically, that was what the whole thing was building up to, and that was what it was all about. But yeah, I think it was about 2 hours and 5 minutes, not counting the end credits, but I didn't note it exactly. Okay, and let's see. Yeah, just to briefly, I guess I could put the entire thing here. Actually, never mind. I was a little unclear on how did Daniel know about the heist. I guess maybe he was following them. Maybe he was sitting outside the Mulligan house. That, yeah. It could have been either of those. And, earlier in the film, I think it's Belle and Linda talking about, she's got such a stick up her ass. There at the end, she clearly doesn't. She has closure now that Harry is for sure dead, and she was able to, basically they resolved their issues. In a manner of speaking, he was going to leave her with nothing because he couldn't handle the problems that come with being black. He couldn't handle the problems that come with having a black family anymore. And he wasn't going to provide for her. He wasn't even going to leave her with money. He was just going to, and she kills him in self-defense, and she makes out with some money. And I mean, we don't know a lot about Amanda. I guess she doesn't end up with any money as such, and I don't know. I mean, ultimately she knew that she was doing two really awful things to Veronica. She was sleeping with Veronica's husband, and she also lied to Veronica that Harry was really dead. The moment that she got the call and there's this, please meet me in this, sauna, she could have immediately replied, Harry's not dead. I know where he is. So she doesn't deserve a payday. Not the candy bar, not either of the two heist games. And she has a certain amount of money, and she was able to rebuild the library in memory of Marcus. And let's see, there was one other thing that I wanted to, basically it's this thing of, it was basically like a divorce if he had a really, really good lawyer or something. He was going to leave her with nothing, just abandon her. And there are a lot of women who have been just completely abandoned, who were left with nothing. And I'm not saying that the solution is to shoot the guy, but I am saying that there's catharsis in having someone shoot the guy who, I almost used this entire notepad up, It almost never happens that I use this much notepad. For the MCU movies, I often use more than one notepad, which is why I always make sure to bring two, all the recent ones anyway. But this is the first time I've used up this much outside of MCU. Okay, so, wow, that took a while. Okay, I'm gonna try not to spend more time than necessary. Okay, so notes taken before watching. There we go. Excuse me. Now, almost every movie I watch in theaters is an adaptation of a comic, an entry in a series or franchise that I'm following, or directed by someone that I've seen other stuff by, where I enjoyed at least some of their work, and I wanted to keep, following what they were making. And, just briefly interjecting, I have not yet watched anything else by this Stephen McQueen. I have watched stuff with the 60s icon, but I definitely will. I no longer watch every trailer that I can. I really did used to. Many of the few that I do see, I see in the theater, waiting for my movie to start. And I do see trailers for stuff that I think looks cool, but I don't watch the film of, at least in theaters, such as Mortal Engines. It's possible that I will watch that at some point, but I really don't intend to go to theaters to watch it. And it looks cool. I'm not gonna lie. I saw the trailer. It looks cool. There are people in it that I've liked elsewhere. However, I've now watched the teaser trailer for this movie in front of several films, like maybe 3 or 4 films or something. Yeah. If you go back in my library, the last 3 to 4 movies I reviewed from the theater in recent, yeah. Watched the trailer for in front of several films, loving every second each time, and yeah, I just, I guess, yeah, this is not the time for it. I'm not gonna try to put too much into words why I don't watch more movies in the theater than I do. Anyway, I ended up, each time I was like, that looks amazing. No. And after the last time, I was just like, maybe not no, maybe yes. Yes, absolutely yes. I found it really, really difficult to argue against watching it and watching it in theaters, because just every single time the teaser. I do think that the second trailer, I think they called it the official trailer. I didn't realize that it was that the one I had watched was the teaser, but that trailer is amazing as well. But I especially love the teaser. And part of it is that I saw it in front of me, so saw it on a big screen, and just But the use of sound, the images, all of these, just it's just it, and I'm really happy that I did. Was it exactly as I expected? Not really, but I didn't have any exact expectation. I didn't go into this expecting heat, Excuse me. I didn't know exactly what to expect, because, the moment that I, his name and then this concept, it was like, how does that make sense? But apparently he watched it when he was like a kid. He watched the original. He didn't watch this. That would have been, if he as a kid had watched the movie he was going to direct later, that would have required time travel technology. But he watched the original miniseries and he was like, I'm going to make that into a movie someday. And so he did. And it's wild. I wouldn't even have thought that it would appeal to him. When you think of, 12 Years a Slave, and then, he really got into this, heist mini-series. It's not surprising to me that he has sympathy for, there's sympathy for black women in 12 Years a Slave as well. So that's not, and women who have no power. But the heist genre, that is a surprise. And it's very surprising that the movie, I thought that it would have more long scenes and longer scenes. But the surprise was almost entirely positive. Now, I would never under any circumstances mess with Amanda Waller, Aisha, leader of the Solomon race, and Oscar for Best Performance by an Actress in a Leading Role, or any Michelle Rodriguez character. I love Michelle Rodriguez in pretty much everything I've seen her in, which is most of what I've had the chance to do. She's so freaking awesome. And I mean, I saw just days ago that apparently they really are making machete kills again in space. I really look forward to her. She has to be in that movie, and not just because she was in the fake trailer, but she's such a great part of the first two. Anyway, excuse me. I don't know the other actors from much. I do love Garrett Dillahunt, especially in the 4400 and Sarah Connor Chronicles. I thought he did well in this. He's maybe a little slow. He's not the most, but he means well. And there's that thing of she can't pay him for the driving anymore, but What if he got to keep the car? And now, apparently, Viola Davis hated the love scenes. Well, Liam Neeson loved them, a great icebreaker. Excuse me. She felt uncomfortable showing so much of herself, even though she's fought for women of color to be represented in love scenes and such. Personally, I thought the women in this were strikingly beautiful, at the risk of sounding like a shallow pig. And it's one of those things where obviously it doesn't mean that you're not good enough if you're not attractive, but this is a movie where the women kind of take control, and yeah, it's the and this is where I noted among the scenes where you see a lot of these women. You've got the scene in the sauna. You've got some sex scene kind of stuff. And you've got these scenes where they're basically like training or practicing for something difficult they're going to do during the heist or something, where they have entirely bare arms. And in general, a lot of it is bare arms, and sometimes more than, but yeah, there are a lot of shots where, yeah, you see more of these women than, Viola Davis wasn't completely, yeah, it was challenging for her too, but I also think that I don't think any of it was gratuitous, is the word that I was looking for. It all served when Elizabeth Debicki takes off her bra and sort of climbs onto David, that's not so that a straight guys in the audience can go like, yeah. It's because she is, yeah, she is basically selling herself for the information that he can get them. Now, which I suppose that is also an element that is a little convenient, that literally the first guy she has this kind of thing with, that she's not like scrolling around, look, oh, this guy knows real estate kind of stuff, he could be useful, now. But again, it didn't feel like it while I watched the movie. So that's, point to both director and writer on that. And, okay, there we go. Now, but yeah, I thought they looked very strong, that is also sometimes movies that try to empower women are too afraid to show them in a more unusual kind of, and there are times where they're very masculine, and that's necessary for the heist. But I mean, with Alice, kind of, I guess you could call it pillow talk. That is more like, more feminine and more kind of female spy kind of thing. Now, this has the Chicago setting, and it's very crime written, and right, on other heist movies, as mentioned, I rewatched Heat this Wednesday. I've watched the remake of Ocean's 11, and only that one. I haven't watched the original, but the first of the remake ones, at least once years ago, I liked it. I didn't like it enough to watch any of the sequels or the recent spin-off, which I do really appreciate, the, blow struck for diversity with an all-female cast and some of them, minorities, not all of them white women. I watched David Mamet's Heist. Was it more than once? It was probably more than once. Years ago, absolutely loved it. David Mamet's genius. Watched Inside Man a couple of times, including a few months ago. Watched The Town when it came to theaters here, and only that one time. Inception, years ago, more than once. Does Duplicity count as a heist movie? Watched it months ago. There's a Heist in the Dark Knight. Watched that months ago. Probably others. I like the subgenre. I love it when done right, but I haven't kept track of what I've watched within it. I have not watched the miniseries. I've played both Kane Lynch games a ton of times, and as much multiplayer as I could, which sadly isn't much. I've played 9 hours of the first Payday game and 6 hours of the second one. I do own both. Haven't gotten around to more than that as far as playing. Now, I haven't watched any other movie by this director nor the writer, but I have heard great things about those films. Now, some of the key ingredients of heist films are tension, twists, a detailed plan that has to be altered and adapt to unexpected events, cops and crooks, guns, violence, getaway cars, getaway drivers, getaway chases, and yeah, I mean, I've pretty much gone over how those, yeah. Now, yeah, some notes from the trailers. I've seen clips from Get Out for reviews, and I've seen the entirety of Black Panther. Daniel Kaluuya has such completely different body language in these trailers, and now that I've seen the entire film, than the clips I'm seeing from Get Out and his role in Black Panther, and just, yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised that he's an excellent and versatile actor, but that is something that really got to me each time I watched the teaser. Honestly, if not for him, not by much, but I might have just barely decided not to watch. But I needed to see this guy, you know, standing there at the cemetery doing a little, you know, wave, and you know, he takes out his gum and sticks it on the like statue. Just, yeah. Now, let's see. Right, and yeah, just briefly. I've made some notes based on both the teaser trailer and the main trailer, and yeah, I'm not going to go over all of this. I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget it between watching the trailers, watching the movie, and recording. Yeah, something like that. Viola Davis and Liam Neeson look really great together. When you see them smiling sweetly in bed, I thought they were great together in this movie. I've seen some say that they weren't. I don't understand how that is. And I think did I see one who said, they shouldn't have been an interracial couple. That would literally have removed a chunk of the movie specifically goes into that they are an interracial couple. Anyway, when I look at them together, when I look at them apart, I do get the sense that when you look at Liam Neeson, I mean, some of his roles otherwise, obviously, but he looks like the kind of guy who he loves who he loves, and he's going to be with that person, you know. And Viola Davis, yeah, she doesn't come across as someone who would have a problem with dating someone of a different race, you know, ethnicity. Race is such a stupid word. And yeah, Elizabeth Debicki has, she's tried to cover her black eye in part with her hair, and probably also makeup. I guess it's her significant other pushing the hair to the side, revealing the black eye. He doesn't look unhappy or surprised at seeing it. He looks as though he thinks she should feel bad for having a bruise, like he thinks she deserved it, which is absurd. I get the sense that he's the one who hit her. I have to briefly say, I'm not going to quote all of it. I love the preacher's voiceover, and I'm really glad that his entire sermon was in the movie, and it really is powerful. Yeah, yeah. I completely understand. I don't know when they made the decision, but someone was like, if we took some key phrases from this whole sermon and put images to it, that would look really good in a trailer. And yeah, if not for the voiceover, if not for the voiceover in the teaser trailer, I don't think I would have watched this movie. But that, and the use of music and sound and the editing, just beautiful. Again, especially if I hadn't watched the teaser, if I had watched the regular trailer, again, I don't think I would have watched it. It just, the teaser just. Okay, you know what? I think I do kind of need to. I'm going to at least quote some of it. Yeah, so I didn't write as much of it as I thought I had. But anyway, let's see. The first. What has happened in the world that normal now passes as excellent? When did we lower our standards? We are living in an environment where people are blind. What you don't see, you don't know. Out of sight, out of mind. And who are we when this world's got you down on your knees? And this was also, when Daniel Kaluuya knocks a man in a wheelchair down in a bowling alley and mockingly lies down in front of him with his, and makes eye contact. Just the there are so many different things here. It's you have that a man in a wheelchair is being abused. Him being knocked over is just it's just so cruel. And then he like lies down in front of him, makes eye contact, like I don't know what words to use, but yeah, that was very, very striking to me. And him eyeing up the guy inside a gymnasium, intimidating him. And let's see. Okay, so that was it for the teaser trailer. Now the regular trailer. I have to say, some of the cuts in the main trailer are the same as in the teaser trailer, but in the teaser trailer, you don't hear the gunfire, you don't hear the explosion. It's, when the car is being riddled with bullets and explodes. And I'm sorry, I do think that it has a stronger, it has a stronger impact on me when I watch the teaser trailer, and there's no, yeah. And let's see. Right, and there's the bit in the trailer where, guns from where, and figure it out. And right-wingers love to point to how Chicago has gun control and gun violence does happen there, That's because it's easy to buy guns right outside of Chicago, then bringing them in. And I was wondering if the movie would show that. I mean, really, in the movie, there's no indication whether she leaves Chicago or, yeah, not unless I missed some, yeah. Now, let's see. I feel like there's the bit where after they've shot at the range, there's this close up of Elizabeth Debicki where she's got she's like looking kind of tough. I'm almost certain that wasn't in the movie, which is a little too bad. I do think it looked really cool, but yeah. Now, right. I don't know why this was on the main page for the miniseries. It seems like it shouldn't be. I don't know. Maybe it's not a late twist. I mean, in this, we're at least halfway through the movie, I think, when it's revealed that one of the husbands survive. That's in the miniseries and that's in this, and yeah. I thought I was careful enough not to have anything spoiled, but I just briefly looked up the miniseries and it said, also one of the husbands is still alive, and it's just, come on, man. Now, and in the interviews with the cast and director, point out that it's important in the Me Too era, and we're not apologizing for being feminine, for being there. And let's see. I don't know. The fact that there's really only one. I was gonna say there's really only one major crime organization in the movie, but I guess there are technically two. It's just that Harry's organization was mostly dead from basically the start of the movie. But yeah, actually, yeah, Harry had a gang, and the Jamal, is it Manning? I want to say Manning. The Mannings have a gang. So yeah, there are two major gangs. It's just that one of them's mostly dead by the time, and one of them's white and one of them's black. Okay, never mind. I was gonna say, was there some kind of racism, internalized racism maybe? I know that Steve McQueen is black. Now, let's see. Yeah, Feminist Frequency talks about how, it goes into political corruption, exploitation, and this thing about how Jack helps them get their business started, and he specifically says, the scene where Elizabeth Debicki's mother talked her into being an escort girl, that scene broke me, and yeah, that was really, really, and yeah, she's like, it's that way you can go to college. And just genuinely, she doesn't think that there's any way for her daughter to earn money other than selling herself. And yeah, it's just, and it's such a, she doesn't even particularly build up to it. She doesn't say, I know this is going to be hard, but I have to. No, she's just like, look, this is what you should do now. And Film Brain mentions in his review that, Elizabeth Debicki's She starts out abused by her husband and mother and becomes increasingly assertive the further into the movie you go. Now, from my personal experience with people who are assertive and people who are insecure, some people who are insecure get pegged down as stupid or ignorant because they say something that sounds stupid or ignorant, but everyone has occasional thoughts that are stupid or ignorant. It's just that certain people shove those thoughts aside without saying them out loud and wait until they reach the thought that sounds better, or at least sounds more assertive. As such, someone who might be deemed stupid or ignorant can, if they become more assertive, come across as smart as they were to begin with, when they were too insecure to discard that initial thought, that they just wanted someone else to say out loud, that no, that's not enough, because they feel like, well, if I say that's not enough, then it's going to turn out that was, that they need to move on to, smarter thoughts. It doesn't help that when, let's say person or group A meets someone who's not assertive, person B, they, meaning A, tend to pressure B into what A want and treat them like they're actually ignorant or stupid, which becomes a vicious cycle reinforcing itself. And, some of the trailers and TV spots, she suggests, well, let's do something to make our alliance official, with the response, this is not a sorority. And she's taken aback by the order to get them some guns. Response is figure it out. In both cases, it can sound somewhat like she's ignorant or stupid, immature maybe, when what she expresses is intelligent, just not presented in the most compelling and convincing way. A group of people can have their bond strengthened by doing something together. It can be a strong motivator and get them to be more focused when they do the tasks, and thus can speed up their efforts rather than just taking away valuable time, which is, of course, the counter-argument there. And someone who doesn't know guns is, of course, going to be at least temporarily surprised when someone else tells them to get guns, especially when they live in a state that has gun control. But briefly, again, that's something that's not, the thing with, let's do something together, that's also not in the movie. Yeah, and it might have been at least a little bit longer, and these things were there, and then they were removed. Yeah, it's not a huge problem. It's not like the trailers lied to us or something, but let's see. Yeah, I've already mentioned, in the movie she sometimes is a little naive. She thought that she wouldn't need a license to, get the car. She thought that they would send it to a place, and I get the sense that she's been used to other people always being in charge, her mother or her husband, so she didn't get to make. That's another thing, if no one ever lets you make decisions for yourself, and then you finally get to make some decisions, the first ones might be, not the best decisions ever made, because you haven't had the practice. You can't, no one is perfect at anything from right away, at least it's unusual. Now, and he also points out, as others, whenever Daniel is on screen, he doesn't have many scenes, but when he's on screen, he's immediately very intimidating, and there's going to be violence. And, Duvall has to leave office because of bad health. He's not that much worse health than Trump, is he? Anyway. And both Film Brain and Feminist Frequencies say it should have been a miniseries, and I've already gone into that. Now, I also like the bit where, Veronica goes, they want money from us, and Linda goes, from us or from you? Now, that brings us nicely to IMDb, Wikipedia, and critics' sites. Now, last I checked, which was this morning, the tomato meter was 91%, which is, not only fresh, but certified fresh, because they've had so many reviews. Average rating of 8.1 out of 10. 268 reviews counted, only 25 of those being rotten. With the consensus, Widows rounds up a stellar ensemble for a heist thriller that mixes popcorn entertainment with a message and marks another artistic leap for director Steve McQueen. Poor guy's knees are gonna give out at this rate. And the audience score was 61% liked it, with an average rating of 3.4 out of 5 and 1,696 user ratings. I'm not that surprised that it's these days. I feel like there are a lot of movies where either the audience really loves it and the critics are, the critics don't, or the other way around. And this is probably more of a critics movie. I'm sorry, but if you go into this movie expecting heat, that's not what this is. Now, but I forget exactly what video it was, but as someone else joked, it's not that Rotten Tomatoes is like a person who says, oh, this movie is bad, or that it's an aggregator site. Robert Tomato is a very nice guy. Now, let's see. A slow burn old school heist film is one that focuses on its characters over action. Heist movie with a pulse. The good, the bad, and the ugly. The good and the bad coexist with the ugly, and the result is a movie 2 parts fun, 2 parts not. I wouldn't even say like, oh, it's only 2/3 fun. I have almost nothing negative to say about this. Now, enough stylistic flourish and character nuances to keep the audiences engaged and entertain them through the familiar parts. Raw, gritty, at times violent, and welcomingly complex. Now, ultimately overcomes its political digressions and gets the job done as a compelling, crowd-pleasing heist flick. Yeah, I mean, the political digressions is almost part of, it's kind of the point. You could re-edit this movie to where the politics isn't, you could cut it down to just the heists, but this is it's telling that the women never actually show any interest in who the alderman is going to be. They don't care about any of the candidates. At no point do they say, we have to make sure that this Jamal guy who's threatening me is not going to become alderman. There's no point where that's so they don't think that the alderman is going to make a difference, no matter who it is, or they would be interested in the election, especially Belle and Veronica. But there's no. Now, again, if you could write this to where they're actually more concerned about the election than they are with the. One second. More concerned with the election than with the heist. If they were like, they choose to do the heist. Jamal says, they're not going to help you because they just killed your husbands. If she, I guess it's possible but she could at least try. If she went to the police and said, you can't let this guy run for alderman because he said this to me. Maybe even like arrange, like if he came to threaten her more than once, he, you know, she could have like recorded one of those times or something. And yeah, so I think I've already mentioned, but I don't think the movie is overstuffed. I do think that it's close to. It's very close, but I don't think it's too close for comfort. As it is, it's just very, very dense. Now, let's see. I'm going to try not to make too much dead air here as I read through. I'm not going to read out loud all of them. Works as a consideration of corruption on a larger societal scale. My first thought is, geez, why did no one think to give Davis her own movie until now? Widows is ultimately a story of female empowerment, but through its sensitive vision and careful technique, it never lets us forget the wounds that come with the victory. Now, I guess... I'm not sure I'm going to get too much more into the details. Oh, just over 3 hours now. Yeah, I probably should. 1 second. Hmm. 1 second. Okay, that should help. This was, I don't overall agree with this guy's review, but he did say, jumps between different characters, never really have time to connect with any of them. This, I've moved on to user reviews from professional critic reviews. Which again, I'm not saying that one is better than the other, just clarifying. I do think, I'm not sure I personally felt that, but I mean, ultimately, I think that I felt that before, the characters that were really, really meant to care a lot about, we spend enough time with, just not that much time in a row. And to me, it was basically, to me it worked, but I do get what he means, and I think that is, it's definitely something that could easily, it's close to, could be, yeah. And I think some people will agree with him on that. Now, this guy says the final heist is an almost insignificant letdown, and I don't feel that way, but I mean, again, I think, I forget if it was Film Brain or From This Frequency, but I think Film Brain says, the actual heist at the end is over in about 10 minutes. And he then goes on to point out, it would of course have been ridiculous. Neither of those videos actually spoil it, although they do they do give some stuff that could be considered spoilers, such as that. He points out, of course, it would have been ridiculous if the film had ever turned into Ocean's 11 with just, okay, this group over here doing this, and then this, and then this other weird thing, it was never going to become that. But I mean, I knew that it was not, that the heist was going to happen very late and be over very quickly. I don't know. I mean, also just when you look at what the film is, of course it's not gonna have this, like, for example, when, for example, Heat, when they rob the bank, in some movies the bank robbery would be the climax, that would be the last big thing that happens, but the movie goes on for like 40 minutes maybe or something. There's a while after the last, yeah, and I didn't expect that the heist in this would happen so early, that there would be, this long chunk after with, there's not a ton of action scenes after the bank robbery before the movie ends. There are a couple of brief scenes of Neil getting revenge. He gets Van Zandt, he gets Waingro, and he almost gets the girl, but then, instead he, has the face-off with Vincent. But yeah, there's I didn't expect the movie to be that, and I mean, if you did, then I get why you're frustrated, but I don't think it's a very realistic expectation. I think people who watched the trailer and didn't at all think about, well, what does it mean that it's done by the guy who did 12 Years a Slave? I mean, they specifically put that in the trailer. They didn't just say, oh, this guy's name, who you may have heard of or something. No, they said, the director of 12 Years a Slave. When you hear that the director of 12 Years a Slave is going to direct a heist movie, of course it's not going to be Heat. It's not going to be Duplicity or Ocean's 11. If you know what his work is like, then I think you have reason, if you know what his work is like and you know what heist movies are like, then either you're like, that makes no sense, there's no way those two go together, or you adjust your expectations for both. Of course the movie's not going to have, the hanging scene in, 12 Years a Slave. There's not going to be a single scene as long as that with, there are too many things that need to happen. That's a movie that isn't as much about, I haven't watched it, so I shouldn't say, but I don't get the sense that as far as I understand, it doesn't have this really long list of dense details that it needs to convey and all these different settings. As far as I understand, you mostly stay with the one character. This one jumps between all these different characters. It's none of the characters is completely detached from all the rest of them. There's always some kind of overlap, but there are tons of characters where it's like, this character doesn't have that much to do with these others, and we still spend time with them. There's still story relating to them and such. Now, but I do think the expectations are a big thing here. Not to say that everyone who didn't like it from that. Now, let's see. Now, let's see. A lot of what this guy says, I don't really agree with. Give it a 3 out of 10. But there's this brief bit that he does. He says, jerky, non sequitur scene choices and pacing for a full hour to start the movie. I think, I'm not sure the grammar is perfect, but I think you know what he's saying. Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. It does. Yeah, and you can tell that this guy doesn't usually do this sort of thing. That's the thing. When you cut between so many different characters, so many different situations, you can do that. If you're Christopher Nolan or Michael Mann or something, but if you just try, you need to have a good handle on that sort of thing, where I'm not saying that Steve McQueen is clearly an amazing director, but I get the sense that what he excels at is when he has one clear protagonist and basically everything else directly affects the protagonist. 12 Years a Slave is specifically about this one man. Shame is specifically about this one man and his sister, I want to say it is. I actually don't know much at all about Hunger, but yeah, where this movie you couldn't have made this movie without having all these different characters. It would have been absurd for Veronica to somehow directly interact, to play some part in the scenes that, oh, maybe she's just also there when, Jack talks to Jamal about maybe she's just also at the church when the priest no. And if you don't know exactly how to very carefully cut between the different ones, and the thing with non sequitur, maybe it is. But I would, if he makes another movie similar to this, I'm almost definitely gonna watch it. But there's definitely some room for growth, yes. Now, and let's see, there's this. And I think I read, it was maybe one of his own quotes, that like he lets the scene play out, I think was the way he put it. And that's a great, that is great, and that can make for some amazing scenes, but I'm not sure it's necessarily the best for this kind of heist story. For that, you maybe have to more kind of take charge and say, okay, this is how it's going to be. Quentin Tarantino is a man who also loves just let a thing play out, but when he does heist stories, it's it's very clear how the things were supposed to work, where I don't know that that's really something that happened here necessarily, but with this, it's a very character driven story, and with some of the stuff where it cuts from one situation to another and such, it didn't necessarily make complete sense, where it maybe needed someone to decide, okay, we need this, and this, so we need to take it, in a very, so all of that needs to be completely in place, where, with this, if maybe at least some of the scenes he said, let's let the scene play out, let's let the scene find, then maybe it ended up with the scene not as much feeling like it led into the next scene, which in this case was very necessary. But I think the fact that he's a director like that, and the movie's is supposed to be like this, and that the movie still is this freaking good, is unreal. So I don't know, maybe early on he was like, okay, you know what, no, I'm gonna need to take more charge here, or something, I don't know, but it's incredible how well it, Now, I think I might have already said it, but just briefly, the other people have pointed out, other people have said that because there are so many different ideas and themes, especially themes, being explored here, they felt it was overstuffed. They feel like it has no room to breathe. I would say a lot of those things affect each other. Racism in power, power dynamics between the races, the way men and women relate to each other, the way power is used in general, all of these things, they do go together, they do affect each other. I personally thought that it worked beautifully. I never felt like the movie was just trying to do too many things. I've seen movies where that happens. That never happened to me here. I don't know. It sucks if you found that it was just two, but I didn't have that experience at all. I felt like it managed to. If some of them had been so like so far away from like then it would have been frustrating. But I felt like it all basically blended together. The yeah. Now, let's see. And various of the people are saying, it's better than Ocean's 8. Now, let's see. This review, it gave it a 6 out of 10. It said the Widow storyline seems somewhat disjointed in a few scenes, leaving one wondering what was that all about. Further, many scenes added no or little value to the movie and could have been edited out, producing a much better overall movie. And yeah, I do think that there were some scenes that, again, to me, I'm still saying 9 out of 10, but there were definitely some parts where I wasn't entirely clear. Yeah. Now. Let's see. So those were all of the reviews. 3 hours and 20 minutes. Yeah, so yeah, I really love this movie, and read reviews, and watch other people's reviews as well. But I thought it has so much to say about race, power, the relationship between men and women, all of these, and I felt like it really did a deeply compelling job of all of them, and I didn't feel like there was any kind of thematic material that genuinely felt like it didn't belong with the rest of it. There are some movies where there are not that many themes, and that works fine for that movie, but I didn't feel like any theme got too little time in this. I felt like it was basically the many themes. It's essentially like a lot of different colors on a color palette, but they all go together so well. So yeah, there's a lot here with like how power works and how it affects black and white, and a little bit here about how men think they should own the women they're with, and some like race, just all these different ones, and together it all makes a really good picture where it all goes together. And to go further on the metaphor, I guess other people felt that the I guess that some of these themes should have been an entire picture onto their own instead of been part of the overall picture, and maybe they didn't feel that it fit into an overall picture, and thus are saying, well, we got a lot of bits and pieces of different pictures, but not a single whole cohesive picture. And yeah, I disagree, but I get why. I'm not even saying I'm necessarily right, but just because this is very unusual. We don't usually, but isn't that, what's it called again? I'm so bad with new words. Intersectionality, I think, where we're talking about, well, it doesn't only affect, it's a problem in this way, but it's also a problem in this way, and it affects different, where, yeah, maybe movie critics are looking at this and not realizing that intersectionality is a good lens to view this movie through. Because when were the current rules established about film themes? Maybe that was before the idea of intersectionality was introduced or fleshed out, and maybe we need to update that idea. I'm sorry, this is sounding like I'm not saying that I'm like on the forefront of some kind of, I'm just saying this is the way I see it, and I think it's worth considering. That's all I'm saying. And I do think that there's really something here, and I hope that it becomes that it sets a new standard, that people, rather than saying, there were a lot of themes in that movie and I didn't think that all of them got equal time, instead of that, say, all the themes in that movie went together really well, so I didn't think that we needed to spend equal amounts of time on all the different ones. Because this movie has so much to say, and it doesn't feel forced in how it, yeah. So I suppose that's pretty much it. And I guess it's not going to be right away, but yeah, I know that watching 12 Years a Slave is definitely going to be, it's going to take a much harder toll on me than this. Yeah. Now, I hope you enjoyed watching, as I enjoyed watching and performing, and I will catch you next time.